don't touch anything.
Second
Okay,
time's the charm.
I'm here. You're here.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about like what maybe if you could give me. I looked into a little bit, but like a little bit of your background leading up to the late '60s, and then how what your work did intersected with
How much of my background did you look into?
only kind of various civil rights sorts of things.
Okay. What do you want to know? I mean,
What I guess what took you into Scarsdale? Were you trying that?
Okay. Yeah. Well, what took me into Scarsdale was I was running a community action program in White Plains, CAP community action program, and I was director of a storefront activity right across the street from the projects, the Fisher Street project right there. And I had a storefront activity, and I had volunteers coming from all over Westchester County, mainly white women volunteers helping out with the kids. And there was some volunteers coming from Scarsdale, some white women. And they were just volunteering, boom, boom, boom. We got to be friendly. And then one of them invited me to come to some meetings in Scarsdale, okay? Where not only meetings, but they weren't meetings, first of all, they were dinner parties. And where I was the only person of color at these dinner parties at these mansions in Scarsdale. And I was being introduced to these men. And it was like something out of a Gatsby movie. I mean, you have a dinner party almost with servants. And then after, the women go into one room and the men go into another room. And the men are all 5 men and they're smoking their cigars and everything. And I'm there. Everything's going great. I mean, at this point, I, for a lot of reasons, did not feel intimidated. I felt perfectly at ease with these people, men, human beings, whatever. I mean, only thing between me and them was that they were rich. And other than that, I didn't feel they were superior or anything. So I would be, and I didn't even smoke, and they were all smoking the cigars. And I would say with the 5 guys, why am I here? Why have you invited me here? Why me? And they would say, well, to tell the truth, Martin Luther King just got killed. It was like 1958. And we really want to do something. We feel there's something we should try to do in Westchester County to help Black businessmen. And I said, okay. I said, well, who are you? Well, then they went around the room. And between the 5 guys in the room, between the 5 guys in the room, under them were at least 250,000 people. Now, I'll come across the names because I have a folder called Scarsdale, and I have 6 file cabinets of folders. I have moved back and forth across the country several times. These 6 file cabinets were not arranged, were not put back alphabetically.
Oh no.
But I know in the 6 file cabinets here in the basement, there is a Scarsdale folder that has the names of these people, okay? And everybody who we invited to the meetings after. So after they went around and told me who they were and how much power they had, okay? I mean, they admitted, 250,000 people, we are in charge, right? And I said, that's amazing. So it didn't take us long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes to say, okay, now what can you do with all your money and influence, right? I mean, you have the money, the power, whatever. And I said, and this came to me, I said, well, why don't we invite to Scarsdale a group of Black businessmen. I mean, there was no such thing as women. Women weren't even considered in that time. But and I said 50 top Black businessmen that we can identify in the United States or in Westchester County in New York to come to Scarsdale for a meeting to meet with you guys. And, that's it. And so they said, okay. So they said, okay, let's set it up. And I started working with somebody there. They assigned one of their underlings to work with me. and we quickly, within a week, working with the U.S. Department of Government, in Westchester County, federal. He identified 50 men in Westchester County who were the top black, who were trying to start a company, doing anything. And so we, with this group in Scarsdale, we sent out invitations to those 50, and they look like invitations from the White House.
Wow.
Professional, handwritten, ink, pen and ink, invitations, calligraphy, the whole bit, beautiful invitations. You are invited to a meeting in Scarsdale to meet with, top executives from, in the United States, and blah, 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 blah. And the meeting will be at so-and-so time at so-and-so church, which they had identified. Those 50 invitations went out. Within a week, we got back 50 responses.
Wow.
The one who said he could not come was in the hospital, half dying, and he apologized he couldn't make it, but keep him informed. 49 of the 50 people showed up at that meeting because they knew what this was about. I mean, they're meeting with some of the richest, most powerful men in the United States. And by this time, my letter had been published in the paper saying, what's you read the letter, right?
Like, what can you do? People want to know what you can do. Here's what you can do.
You got money. That's it. Period. So they were there. The businessmen were there. Great meeting. Must have been, I would say maybe 150 people. Church was packed. Food, like gourmet, first class, everything. I said a few words. The guy who was head of the Scarsdale thing said a few words, which was the beginning of the Scarsdale Human Relations thing. They had one meeting before, which wasn't anything. But then they were in joint with me in this meeting, and after that became the Scarsdale Human Relations Committee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whoever was forming up the Scarsdale Human Relations, he spoke at the meeting also. And that was it, And I know some things happened at that meeting. I mean, as I always tell one little story to somebody, I said I was at a punch bowl there, and there was this black businessman with his son, and there was another guy who owned a big office complex in Manhattan, and he just casually said to this guy, he says, "What do you do?" He says, "Well, I run a janitorial service in White Plains, New York." And I knew what this was. I mean, it was like, okay, a black guy and a son running a janitorial service. Maybe they're cleaning out 4 or 5 buildings, right? Big deal. Mm-hmm. So this guy says to him, "Well, I own a business on Fifth Avenue, a 20-story building, and I need a janitorial service. Can you handle that?" Mm-hmm. And the black guy said, "Oh, sure." I mean, I saw and I know a handshake. We're talking $1 million business on a handshake. I saw that happen. I know, because I talked to the guy after who ran the business. He said, "Yeah, I hired him and set him up," and that was it. Now, that's one thing I know happened, and that was a dream of what we wanted to happen, right? After that meeting, I did not receive one word after from anybody who ever went to that meeting. To this day, if any of the other 49 men ever got anything out of that, I don't know anything about it. Now, one of my interests with you, and I think could be fantastic. Earl Graves moves to Scarsdale.
Right.
Is it any coincidence that he moved to Scarsdale within a year or so after this meeting?
That's interesting.
Was Earl Graves even one of the ones invited to that meeting?
Right.
I have to check my list. I don't know. Did somebody who went to that meeting, one of the businessmen after, contact Earl Graves, whatever he was doing, if he didn't come to that meeting, and then got Earl Graves to move to Scarsdale? What made Earl Graves move to Scarsdale? And we know how big a deal that was,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Whoa. I mean, Earl Graves, in his biography, whatever, talks about, oh yeah, I moved to Scarsdale. Oh yeah, my son went to Scarsdale High. Boom, 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 boom. I was one of the first blacks in Scarsdale. Okay, we all know you went to, but what got Earl Graves to Scarsdale?
Right.
Your job as a historian to dig that out. To me, that would be a fantastic story. Now, his wife is dead. He has 2 sons. He always says in this stuff, I haven't read all Earl Graves, but he's very proud of moving to Scarsdale. But why did he move to Scarsdale? Who made him move to Scarsdale? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Good story, I think. His son, I'm sure, doesn't have a clue. Either one of them,
Right.
They're just head of his $1 billion industries, and they're doing great. More power to them. But do they know why their daddy moved to Scarsdale? I don't think so. So to me, that's a story for you to check out. You're the historian, right?
Yeah.
And you want to know something about black people, because after he came, how many other blacks did he draw to Scarsdale? Right? And the other blacks who drifted in after that, because when I wrote my thing, at least from what I knew at that time, there were no black people who owned property in Scarsdale. Now I found out that there was a part of Scarsdale out somewhere where there was black.
Right by White Plains, yeah.
Yes, I've just learned that recently within the past year. I never heard of these people, but obviously they were there. So I was mistaken when I said there were no black people who owned a home in Scarsdale, because obviously there did. But what I got, there was 100 blacks who were servants in Scarsdale living in. That's all I heard. That's what I got from the people in Scarsdale. Whatever. So now you know why I got into Scarsdale. And so after that happened, within about 3 or 4 months, one of the people who lived in Scarsdale, who worked with ADL, Arthur D. Little, up in Massachusetts, got me a job. And I then moved to East Cleveland, and did a very, very interesting thing for ADL in East Cleveland,
This would have been 69 then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is all historical on Google. I mean, New York Times 2-page story, what happened when I went to East Cleveland. That's another whole story. And but basically I went there through people that I met in Scarsdale, and White Plains. But I knew nothing else of what happened about it after that. I had no contact with Scarsdale.
Okay. Did you feel like, so you have the black businessmen and the women, did you feel like behind...
No women.
Or rather the women who kind of set it up, I guess.
White women.
Right. They were, what the storefront that you ran, so the white women were volunteering, what did you do there that they were volunteering to do?
It was a community action program. I was a community organizer for the community action program in White Plains, New York. So it was a storefront thing where, on the street, I had a office, and it was right across the street from the projects, Fisher Avenue. And my office was used for community meetings. My office was open to the community. People in the community could use my office. I mean, the Gray Panthers met there, the Black Panthers met there. Anyone who had anything going on in the community, NAACP, whatever, they could use my office for community meetings.
So what might a white woman do for you, or do at the office?
With the kids, tutoring, reading, right there, helping reading. One of them, her husband owned Palisades Amusement Park. Once a month, they sent a bus, or once every other week, they sent a bus, which loaded up with all these black kids, and they went to the Palisades. He gave them a free ticket plus $5, and that was their thing, okay? Another woman belonged to, I know at that time they had Jewish and non-Jewish country clubs.
Right.
And so she belonged to a Jewish, I think, not Jewish, non-Jewish, and she got the board to send a bus, and this was a miracle. Once a week, a bus came from this country club in Scarsdale, and that bus load of little black kids swam in the pool in the country club in Scarsdale. And I used to be sitting there with the head of the country club watching the little black kids in the pool. And I actually said to him, "Do you drain the pool every week?"
Oh, God. Oh.
He said to me, "There is pressure on me to do it."
Oh, my God.
He said, "But I will not drain the pool every week."
Oh, my God.
Okay? It's a fact.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Oh! But he said, "I will not drain the pool every week."
Okay, good.
I mean, that was 1969,
Yeah.
And I know one of these clubs cost $10,000 a year for those people down there, which was low then. I can imagine what it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, they had nightclubs. Tony Bennett and people like that came, and that was their entertainment at their private club, right? Frank Sinatra, whatever. And that's the only time I ever set foot in those places was when I came with the kids on the bus. And I was never in those places at all. So that's my little connection with Scarsdale.
So it sounds like perception is that there were a lot of people in Scarsdale who did want to do the right thing.
Of course.
Of
course. Very many. I had positive. Everybody I came in contact with at these parties where I was always the only person of color. Mm-hmm. They never invited anybody else except me to the parties or to the dinners. And I look around, why me? Oh, and I said, why me? They said, well, because we can talk to you and tell you what our problems are, and you don't make us feel guilty and because of racism or anything like that. You don't really make us feel guilty. And we feel comfortable talking to you, and we feel you can really be honest with us, so we can be honest with you. And that's why they invited me to the parties, which was great.
Wow.
They didn't have any black friends in Westchester County.
Yeah. Huh. That's really interesting. I've been reading all the papers and things like that and trying to put this thing together. I know they had a plan to bus kids up from Mount Vernon, 30 kids a year to start busing them. And in fact...
For what, schooling? To go to school?
To go to school. That was, I can't imagine that happening today. I know that era is kind of over or whatever, but, and it seems like the majority of Scarsdale did not want it, but the Board of Ed said it was the right thing.
Did they do it?
Well, they authorized it, but at that time, Mount Vernon, there were, I think, 7 people on the Board of Ed down there, only one of whom was African American, and they voted it down. In part because I believe people from Scarsdale went down there to talk to them, people who opposed it. But Mount Vernon had its own internal problems. It was part white, part black. And if they started busing black people up to Scarsdale, they might have to start busing internally. And they didn't want to do that. So the only person who voted for the plan was the one black member of the Board of Ed. So it didn't happen, but it almost could have, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. Interesting times.
Yeah, I feel like I don't feel like people are really. And there was another plan that was helping give second loans to help black homeowners get the deposit in Scarsdale.
Really?
Yeah, because apparently, whether it's bank discrimination or not having enough, you had enough income to make it, but you didn't have enough for the deposit down payment. And they got about 15 black families to move in. Maybe half of them moved out. But
they did.
But the trail of all this stuff goes dead around Reagan. Around 1980, it seems like nobody's, really trying to make any efforts to integrate it. So it does still seem like people are trying to do the right thing, but not necessarily here, like not necessarily in their home.
That reminds me. Around that time, I was a ghostwriter. So I wrote a lot of papers for different people. Ghostwriter. Really, I didn't know the people. They didn't know me. It was all done. And I did 2 master's degrees, one at Wharton. I wrote a guy's whole thing, got his MBA. I got $500. But another one, which was fascinating, another one was for a master's degree at Trenton State. And her thing was the integration of Levittown, Pennsylvania, because it was Levittown, Long Island, which was all white, and they vowed no blacks would ever move into Levittown,
Right.
which they held on to that for a while. And then there was Levittown, Pennsylvania, where the first black family tried to move in, and hit the fan, had Life magazine, the whole bit. So this woman from whose master's degree I wrote for Trenton State was what happened with the black family who moved into Levittown, Pennsylvania. What happened with that? So I actually interviewed for her master's. Like I said, I was doing research. I interviewed the first black family that moved in there. I interviewed the white people who led the demonstrations against them.
Oh yeah.
And by this time, these people are all friends, whatever. But I interviewed the person and found out, well, how did you become the first black person to move into Levittown, Pennsylvania? What happened was the Friends, Quakers in Philadelphia, put up the money.
Mm-hmm.
People couldn't really afford it. And that's how they got in, through the Friends. And so it was probably that same kind of thing going on in Scarsdale. People like the Quakers, Friends, Unitarians, sponsoring black people. I've seen that all over the place. But a lot of problems with that kind of thing, because sometimes when they get people in, the reason they can't stay is because, okay, they put up the money, but they really can't afford it, And then there are certain conflicts and lifestyles where the people they just don't like white people sometimes, and they don't get along, not used to it, really. I mean, so even though the white people try, there's problems on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's got to be a critical mass, right? If you're one of 10 families in town, it's going to be hard for this to feel like home.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened in Scarsdale. I mean, he said they tried with some people, but it didn't work. Whatever, So what else has been happening in Scarsdale in terms of integration? I mean, what in your history? When did things start opening up, really?
Well, I mean, the ironic thing is it's sort of never. So
I was like, did it ever open up in Scarsdale?
Yeah, I mean, so I would trace it through as follows. In the late 1850s, this man Robert Purdy, who was an escaped slave from Louisiana, he's the one who settled on Saxon Woods Road.
Right.
He had 5 acres. Later, it shrunk. He passed it down through the generations, and at least till the 70s, the 80s, they were the core of Black Scarsdale. And there was an affiliation. I've got a great picture from 1890 of the Quaker school. There were 2 kind of school areas in Scarsdale. One was Quaker, one was not. And you see five black kids there, which was amazing before you know the story. So you kind of move through, as you mentioned, as you move through the 20s, 30s, the 40s, suburbanization. And I look through all the census records. There's a lot of black people in Scarsdale, but none of them are the head of household.
What are they doing?
They're in other people's homes.
Yeah, servants,
servants under them. So there's almost no black students. There's nobody in the system, in the school system.
Right.
That you've got black people, probably twice as many women as men, between 20 and 45, and that's it. So,
domestic.
So then you move into the 60s, and there are more of those efforts. And so there was before the Federal Fair Housing Act in 67, they sent around a pledge because it was like people didn't want to sell to black families. They would say, no, it's not because I'm racist. It's because after I leave, it will offend my neighbors or it will decrease property values. So they sent around a pledge to try to get everybody to sign, I don't mind black people in my neighborhood. And they had some success with that. but Black people weren't coming, I'm sure, because the income distribution back then was probably similar to today, and probably not as extreme as today, where you
Sure.
don't have as many in that top 10% group. So there was the effort to bring in the families with help with the down payment. Then where it seems to have really stopped was the idea of building low to moderate income housing.
One thing about that time, if you're doing your research, you should check in Pleasantville,
Uh-huh.
right before there, in the mid 50s in Pleasantville,
Mm-hmm.
Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier tried to buy houses in Pleasantville.
Huh.
They both were denied. Okay?
Uh,
This is in the mid 50s. So
uh,
that was interesting. Okay, let's come back.
yeah, right across the way in Edgemont, there's a sad story in a way. Um, the Cockburn family, he was a sea captain for Marcus Garvey's Black Star Line, an
Mm,
all-black crewed steamship.
mm,
He and his family were well-to-do. He and his wife were in Harlem. They wanted to come up here. They built a house for 20 grand in Edgemont, but then a neighbor sued, saying you can build the house, but you can't live here because of the restrictive covenants. In come two lawyers. I forget the first one, but Thurgood Marshall was the second one.
good.
So they fight it under the definition that there was no definition of Negro,
Mm,
that Negroes weren't allowed, and they lost. And
mm,
the judge said basically you are and you can't live here. But
good.
one of the lawyers, it wasn't the one who was Thurgood Marshall, it was the other one. He wrote an autobiography, it might have been Alexander something. He went to the plaintiff's attorneys and convinced them that if they never actually submitted the judge's order. If they
Mm,
had, he would have appealed it, and he could have won on appeal, in which case the floodgates would open.
mm.
So quietly, they were allowed to live there.
Oh, around what year was this?
That was 37.
37.
37. You know, and
What is it in Scarsdale?
that was just across the way in Edgemont,
Oh,
which is part of
oh, okay.
Greentown. But it's right here. And the response in the Scarsdale Inquirer was just like muted. Nobody said anything. There were no angry letters for or against. It just was reported. So I'm
Right.
assuming, I know that there were some places of Scarsdale that were still restricted. But anyway, so basically at one point, Scarsdale seemed to have roughly conquered the we're not going to let any of them in. Sure, you can come in if you can afford it. And it wasn't working. So they wanted to have a greater range of income to build moderate housing. And that people did not want that. They say Scarsdale is a village of single family homes.
Right.
And we don't want a ghetto or whatever you call it in our town. And that's kind of where it stalled out. So I have the latest census numbers. I can't recall what the numbers is offhand. It's maybe 60 families out of what, 3,000 or something like that. 1.2% African American in Scarsdale now. So we haven't.
And where are they living? Different. Yeah.
They're around. The Saxon Woods thing is done. So they're just one-offs basically. One-off.
How about of those 60 families? The socioeconomically, are they rich, poor, or what?
I mean, they've got to be rich.
Okay.
You know, in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much the price of entry to Scarsdale is going to be 800 grand and 25 grand a year in taxes or something like that.
Wow.
You know, and there's no, maybe you can shave off a little bit here or there, but there's no moderate income that I know of.
I know there are some black ministers from White Plains living there, and who else are the blacks? Athletes and stuff. Who are they?
Yeah, there's a guy who plays for the Knicks who's here. There's a Broadway star who played George Washington in Hamilton. He's here. I don't know the profile. I don't know that anybody else has a much higher profile. But so I mean, look, part of it is where I'm seeing is part of it is the economic. But I think still under economics, I think we're still underrepresented. I think if you're a black family and you got $1 million to spend on a house, I have a feeling you're probably going to prefer White Plains or something else rather than feeling like a pioneer in Scarsdale. Unless you're Earl Graves. When you're gazillionaire and you can afford a mansion, you're going to say, I made it, and you're going to plant your flag here. But
how about Hispanics or Latinos, whatever they call them now?
There are some, but the census figures get a little bit muddied because you can be, it's not working class Latinos here. It could be somebody, we've got a friend here in the neighborhood. She's Latino, but she's like 1/4 Cuban, so she identifies as Latino. A Cuban American, but she doesn't have a Hispanic name or anything like that. So
how about Asians or Indians?
Asians, people from Asia, that population has exploded. About a seventh of the town is Asian now, which is sort of like the thing. It's if you can afford it, you can come here. Like, we're not going to stop you. So they started trickling in, I think, a little bit expatriates. When Japan was really booming in the 80s, they started to send folks here for 3-year stints and back. Since then, it's more Chinese, and it's actually kind of cool because they'll be often multi-generational. The kids, the working parents, and then the grandparents take care of the grandkids. So when you go, I'm in Edgewood, when you go by one of the schools, late at night in the summer, you'll see a bunch of Chinese grandparents and the Chinese grandchildren at the playground, a lot more than white kids or other kids there, just because they are, and then that's how they socialize. They get together.
How about Indians?
Definitely some. I don't know the numbers on that. I mean, they probably fold into the 1/7 Asian, but you'll definitely see Asians, Indians here for sure.
Middle East, Saudi Arabia.
I can't think. It doesn't strike me as a significantly large group.
They have all the money in the world. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there's pockets of like New Jersey or something like that.
Okay.
So, just for whatever reason. I mean, I'll just give you an example. I have a friend who's Albanian American. Well, he's Albanian. He plays in Albanian wedding bands, and they're all in Jersey. That's just where the first few people settled. Then everybody else, when they come here, they go there.
Sure.
So, so it certainly could happen. I mean, Scarsdale's got to be half Jewish now, something like that. That number's been rising.
It reminds me of Antioch. I went to Antioch College in 1960, right? And Antioch was very, very competitive. I mean, Betty Friedan, who was a friend of mine, she wanted her son Joshua to go to Antioch. He was accepted. I mean, he was president of his little prep school in Manhattan and everything like that. Straight A student. He could not get into Antioch in early 60s. Betty was so pissed off. I even drove her son all the way out there. And the reason Antioch had a unknown quota is Antioch now. Jews from New York City.
Yeah.
If they let every Jewish kid from New York City who was qualified, had their board scores at least 1450 out of 1600 on SATs, Antioch would have been over half Jewish.
Right.
And they said, well, we want to have some geographic diversity here, right? So there was really a quota on Jews going to Antioch, like I'm sure in a lot of other colleges in the United States.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think what we're seeing now, I often, I often describe Asians, like Asians are the Jews of now. There's the same limits being placed on them.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a bunch of stuff with Yale and Harvard with alumni interviews where, again, alumni interviews are kind of a bad idea because you wind up just self-replicating the group that's already there. Sure. So they would interview Asians and consistently give them lower scores. They would either think that some tiger mom pushed them into it, or that they're not really artistic, or that they're not really charismatic. They just...
Well, at Berkeley right now, you familiar with Berkeley?
Yeah.
Berkeley's almost half Asian,
Yeah.
right? Because they've eliminated, there's no more affirmative action, which I am in favor of no more affirmative action. I've always been against affirmative action for a lot of reasons. So now it's whoever qualifies, zoom. So Berkeley, woo, half Asian. And at Harvard right now, there's a case getting right up to the Supreme Court brought by, I think, 6 Chinese students who were denied admission to Princeton, all straight A, all 1,600 SATs, boom, 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 boom. They were denied admission to not Princeton, I think I always get Princeton, Yale, Princeton. And they were denied because they were Chinese.
Yeah.
That's going right up to the Supreme Court. It's going to be thrown out, and they're going to win. They have to win, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
And, so I've been against affirmative action based upon race for a long time because statistics prove that when a lot of research studies been done on it, the students overall who are let in by affirmative action, regardless of their race, they do not perform. They underperform, and the dropout rate is twice as high, and is disastrous for the student who went in and said, "Gee, I thought it was Harvard material." Well, you were let in, but
right.
I mean, when I was in Antioch, okay, there were only 8 students of color there when I was there out of 1,100. Only 8 were black, okay, when I was there. 4 of them were valedictorians of the black. They didn't even talk to me because I wasn't a valedictorian. I mean, really, there is such a thing as caste in class in this country. And I did not go to a prep school. I was not valedictorian. I had one black student say to me, "Well, I am a chemistry major. I only associate with people who are chemistry majors. I don't care what race you are." We had one conversation. That was it. He didn't talk to me. I wasn't a chemistry major. I was below him. I didn't go to prep school. Okay. And that's the way it was at Antioch, you know. So, I don't know. If a student had gotten in, and this is, let's see what happened. If a student had gotten in an affirmative action at Antioch and he was in, like, my physics, I majored in physics, okay? If that's, what it shows is that if you come in where the average SAT scores at Antioch were like 1450, when you come in affirmative action with an SAT score of 1,000 or below, no way in the world can you compete academically.
Yeah.
Now, Antioch wound up having the first black studies program in the United States. Antioch had the first black dorm because Antioch decided in 1965 to go after money from the Rockefeller Foundation, who said, after President Kennedy said, "Hey, how come you white elitist colleges don't have more black students?" And then the Rockefeller put out money. "Hey, let's you white elitist colleges get more blacks, get more blacks." So Antioch was the first one to get the most money in 1965. Remember I said there were 8 students of color when I was there? When I went back at Antioch as director of interracial education for the college, they had 105 black students. Woo!
Yeah.
But they also had the first black studies program. Woo! They also had the first black dorm. Woo! And Kenneth Clark, who's not from Scarsdale, but from right next door, Dr. Kenneth Clark, who became a friend of mine, because I took his daughter to parties, Katie, who went to Vassar. But that's another story. But Kenneth Clark was on the board of directors of Antioch when Antioch set up its first black studies program. And Kenneth Clark withdrew from the board, and of course his resignation was a full page in the New York Times. Why he withdrew from Antioch's board because of the black studies, because he said it was racist. So the Department of Education in the United States, by this time, there were like 10 or 12 black studies programs being set up, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all this stuff. And Department of Education zeroed in on Antioch and said this is racist, and they were going to withdraw all funds from Antioch College within 2 months, unless they closed the black dorm.
Oh my God.
Then I'm thrown in, and all of a sudden, I'm head of interracial education at Antioch, and all these students who were in the black dorm, I'm in charge of their financial aid. Dun, 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 dun. To make a long story short, we had a thing, and I worked out with the black students. I made up a program. See, the reason, and this is an important thing you have to remember, the reason they set up the first Black Studies program was because they realized after 2 years they could not compete. They were in over their heads academically. Antioch was using them as guinea pigs. The president of Antioch, when I interviewed him for my PhD, like, hey, why did you do this? You know, he said, Dr. Dixon, he said, well, it's a very interesting experiment. Experiment. He was an existentialist. And I read a lot about him. His philosophy, Antioch's philosophy was, let's bring these students to Antioch and see how they do.
Right.
No supportive services, really? An Evelyn Woods reading dynamics program, where if you showed up in that classroom for readings, there was a sign you couldn't read. So how many students you went to the class to get the reading program? 0. Let's see how they do. Ha, ha, ha. And what they did, they were very smart enough to pass. The reason they got in was verbally. They were smart. Academically, shit.
Right.
They realized we are guinea pigs. Then withdrew. They set up the first black program in the United States. They set up the first Black Studies in the United States to survive. Now, what I'm telling you, black organizations do not admit, but it's the truth. They set up Black Studies to survive because they could not survive at Antioch. They set up their own standards. They hired their own professors. They forced Antioch to give them academic credit for teaching themselves. They brought in black militants from the United States who were really way out black, Black Panthers, everything else. They taught their courses. They got academic credit. Antioch, what an interesting experiment. This sucks, right?
Yeah.
So when I came in over top of this whole thing, because I'm head of the money for the students, I'm the financial aid. I'm in charge, right? So I set up a program. I said, okay, very interesting, but the government is getting ready to withdraw all funds within 2 months, unless this dorm is closed. And I devised a program which the students accepted, which had the first program in the United States at a white college, which Antioch was, for supportive services, for people who somehow or the other, if you let them in, hey, you got to help them for real.
Yeah.
First of all, you shouldn't have let them in. But if they're here, now you have to help them. So I set up a supportive program which cost $250,000 out of the college budget to set up this a real counseling program, really nice for anyone. Everybody who's there had to be tested, even if you were, have you ever heard of Gould, Jay Gould, one of the top anthropologists?
Yeah, Stephen Jay Gould. Yeah.
Stephen was a friend of mine there, okay? He died with Holman's, okay? Even if you're Stephen Jay Gould, in the future, you had to take all the aptitude tests, okay? And even if you're Stephen Jay Gould, and if you can't write, you have to take this course in the future. This was the program I designed, which Antioch accepted, which became the New Directions program. And because I got a lot of money to do this thing from the College Entrance Examination Board and Rockefeller, I had all sorts of scholarships. When I finished this thing, it was adopted. Not only did Antioch set up this program to all students had to go through these tests, and no matter who you are, if you had deficiencies, you had to take these courses. The College Entrance Examination Board disseminated my program nationwide, and it became the program nationwide for Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and everybody else. After that, how to properly accept minority students.
Right.
You don't just accept them, you make sure they're qualified, or you're harming them, right? So, to make a long story short, we're all over the place. The black students, they who had the first black dorm, and I said, if you don't close this dorm, the college closes. If you accept my program, you'll be helped. You'll be helped, and you'll survive. They accepted my program. They closed the black dorm. Okay. The college did not lose its funding. Okay. Ebony or Jet came on. Oh, they closed the black dorm. Front cover. They closed the black dorm. The first black, they closed it. And it shows the students ceremoniously burning their sign outside. We closed the black dorm. We closed the black dorm. Yeah. 3 or 4 page article in Ebony magazine. My name was never mentioned, of course. What the hell? Who cares?
Yeah.
What the hell? Anyway, you don't bring in people who are not qualified. You shouldn't do it. It hurts them. Because then when they go through and fail out, as half of them do, and then they don't know what happened to me at Harvard. I thought I was Harvard material. Yeah, but, So that's another story.
So by analogy, what do you feel about efforts to attract black people to Scarsdale?
I think it should be done, of course.
And including
in the right way. You don't have to. If they can't afford it, you don't pay their goddamn way in. You don't put up the money for them. If they can't afford it, they can't afford it.
They can't afford it. And what do you
run stuff?
And what do you think would be effective? What would get over that? Maybe we're slowly going over it just the way things are. Do you think that there's anything to do that could hasten the process?
Sure. I think there's a lot you could do if you wanted to integrate Scarsdale. And I'm sure a lot of blacks would like to live in Scarsdale, and because the statistics now are that most blacks who can afford it around Maryland, around Washington, you have areas around Washington, D.C., very, very affluent. Where do you think all the rich blacks go? They go into these very affluent gated communities around Washington that are 100% black. And they're millionaires. They're living together because they feel more comfortable together because nobody is excluding them, right? And they're fine. The kids are going. A lot of things are happening that are not too cool there. The kids are not performing as well as they should in the schools, even though they have all the money in the world. That's interesting. But they feel more comfortable living among themselves. You can check this out statistically. Right. Blacks, when they move into the suburbs, they're moving into areas that are predominantly black because they feel welcome.
And I think that's Asians, Jews, everybody does that, or a lot of people do that. Nobody.
They've always done it, all over the country.
So, so Scarsdale's at 1.2%. What would make people want to live here?
They have good schools.
Yeah.
They have good academic, probably the best schools in the country. That would make them want to live there. But
we do already, and black people aren't choosing Scarsdale in large numbers.
Because, if I ever had the energy, I could design a program for you to approach blacks who had the money to consider Scarsdale. Okay? And they would check it out, et cetera, and if they felt that they were going to be welcome, then you would have more blacks moving to Scarsdale. No, it wouldn't happen. It would just happen. If there was an effort made to attract them, to introduce them, let's say Scarsdale had a committee, whatever, we want to diversify Scarsdale, whatever. You don't go out and say, hey, we want more blacks. we want to fight racism because so-and-so got killed by a cop. That's not why you do it.
Right.
You do it because you just want to, we feel for a lot of reasons it would be better for people living here to have, for the kids, to have friends who are, diversity. It just helps. It really does help them. And we want our kids to live in an integrated community. Now, I say integrated. Whatever happened to the word integration?
Yeah.
Think about it. Very serious. I've written a lot about it. You check out my writing. It's very serious. Integration has been replaced by multiculturalism.
Mm-hmm.
Multiculturalism is so accepted in this society right now, people don't even think about it. But you just type into Google, what is multiculturalism? Just the word.
Right.
What is multiculturalism? Multiculturalism means separation. It does not mean coming together. It's based upon glorifying differences.
Right. Yeah.
And the end result, when you have meetings of multiculturalism, all these discussion groups you're having all over the country, people come together, black and white, when they leave, they're not any closer together. All they've done is yell about, this and that, we should do this and that. But there's no real effort to look for similarities. Everybody knows the differences, but they glorify the differences. Instead of looking for similarities, what do we have together? Why has the word, which Martin Luther King and I and others, we fought for integration? What happened to integration? We're talking about trying to integrate Scarsdale. Now, what would happen if somebody came up with a program to integrate Scarsdale? Some people wouldn't even know what you're talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'd be interested in. When I say integrate, I mean people coming. I'm not talking about assimilate. I'm not talking about coming in and acting like you're white or anything like that. Be proud of whatever you are, whatever it is, and share it. But you all learn to live together and become educated, know a little bit more about Italians and Jews and blacks, food, whatever, religion. That's integration. You don't give up anything. You keep whatever you have, and you're proud of whatever you have, and you share it, and people become educated. That's integration. What happened to that in the United States? There's no goal for integration. And you wonder why we're having problems in this country right now?
Yeah.
No conception of what integration is anymore. We're multiculturalism, and you look it up, it's already been declared illegal in Canada. You know that? Canada has rejected multiculturalism. In England, they have rejected multiculturalism. In Germany, they have rejected multiculturalism. Not the United States. You know what the hell is going on? It's the most divisive thing in the world, multiculturalism. Think about that one.
Yeah.
So anyway, my goal for Scarsdale is that to integrate it.
Yeah. Do you?
Right. And there's no problem if you would go about it in the right way. Nice. It could happen, and peacefully it could happen, and people would just start moving in, and people would accept them, and people would get along fine.
Do you think? I see. The most extreme, Confederate statues coming down and things like that. Do you think it would make any difference to prospective black homeowners if we say renamed streets that were named after people who owned slaves?
No.
That doesn't make a difference. That's not.
No. To some of them, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. What?
Yeah.
The whole thing about Black Lives Matter. The Black Lives Matter thing up and down Hawaii. I personally thought that was ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous now. In this town where I am right now, Johnson, Vermont, which to me is like utopia. I've been here 10 years. I love it here. I mean, I could have lived anywhere in the world, but I picked to live in Johnson, Vermont. And that's because I wound up teaching at the college here. I taught for 2 years, taught sociology, psychology, criminology, anthropology. little town, little community college. Not, it's a state college, but no problem. I like it here. And I've never had any problems in Vermont whatsoever, and I've written about this. Some people can't. I've never been stopped by the police. I've never been harassed. I'm as brown as you want to be. What the hell are you? Look at me, right? The police chief, when he has problems, he calls me on the phone. Offie, they say I don't have enough blacks in my department. What should I do? Oh, God. Yeah. Let's have lunch.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll keep our social distance now.
Right.
But, I love Vermont, right? And so all this crap. So in Vermont now, my little town, there's a group of whites motivated by white guilt. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yeah.
Oh, boy, please. Great. People are writing books about it, coming out about it. Fine. Oh, white guilt. They want to hang in my little town of about 1,000. They want to hang a Black Lives Matter on every street pole. I mean, what the hell? Please! If you want to put Black Lives Matter in your yard, fine. And they're all over the place. They're on cars up here. A parade went by my house about a month ago, right after the guy got shot, on 100 cars in Vermont. At least 100 with flags. Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. The people in the cars were 98% white.
Right.
Okay. The only blacks up here, really, in my area, are mixed couples, mainly black men and white wives. Mm-hmm. Fine. Okay. And so when the Black Lives Parade Matter came by my house, screaming and yelling, I was out there waving to them. Yay, go! And they were so glad. A black person!
Yeah,
Holy
a black person.
Yeah.
You found him.
A black person! Almost caused accidents as they were flying. Look, there's a black guy over there. I said, go! Go! I'm all for you, go! It was really funny. But then when they come to say they want to hang up this white group who's motivated by guilt, right now, I mean, this has happened yesterday, okay? Yesterday, they had a Zoom meeting about should they hang up the flags. And of course, I'm the only black person in the Zoom meeting. And I didn't say, don't hang up the flags. I just said, if there is going to be flags put up, it should be put up by a vote, after a vote by the people in Johnson. If the people in Johnson vote majority to hang up a Black Lives flag or any other thing that's not a government, fine. I said, but don't just do it because you're pressured by a group of people for one reason or the other. And of course, I was voted down. Yesterday, right here in John, they're still going to do it. Excuse my language. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Please. Okay, I had my little vote, and we're going to put it together.
Yeah, well, I guess black votes don't matter. The lives do, but the votes don't.
Okay, at least I tried.
Yeah.
I said, I don't see any purpose of it myself. I mean, if the people want it, if they voted in, fine. But just because some small, very small group motivated by white guilt wants to put up a flag about Black Lives Matter, I said, it doesn't move me at all. Please. If you put it on your own lawn, who cares what you do on your own lawn? But like I just said, you can pull the wagon up and down the street all day long, but don't try to make me get on your wagon. Okay?
So what I haven't read any of these books. Like, what do you describe as white guilt? Like, were the women, either the businessmen in '68 or the women who worked, were they motivated by guilt or by something else?
Which one are you talking about?
Like the women, no, back 40 years, 50 years ago, the women who came up and worked in No,
they weren't motivated by it. They were very good people who became very good friends of mine. who just wanted to help out. And then when they saw some black kids who needed tutoring, who needed some reading and writing help, who needed to go to recreational activities, who needed to go to nice swimming, and that's fine. That's great.
So what's the difference between what you're saying, the guilt, and what they did? Is it that your actions are actually concrete?
You know what's happening now? You mean between what's happening now? What's happening now? There is a difference. There is a difference. The white, and I'm a liberal, of course. Of course I'm a liberal. But the white liberals and radicals, and I'm a radical, of course. You know, but the whites who were screaming and yelling and are very emotional and irrational, who want this and this and this for black people, they're doing it because they feel guilty about slavery, you know, and they're trying to make reparations for us to give us black people. Okay, I got the good for you. One of my black friends, one of my 5 or 6 black friends in Vermont, called me on the phone the other day. I said, Offie, have you heard about the reparations movement in Vermont? I said, no. He said, oh, well, there's this group of whites, white liberals, and they're giving money to every black person in Vermont. I said, no shit. I said, where do I sign up? She gave me the link. I signed up. I said, how much are they giving? $250. More power to them.
Yeah.
Make me feel good. I can use the money. Okay? I signed up for it to get the $250. And then she called it, Offie, did you get your money? I said, no. I said, is anybody really getting? She said, yes. She really knows someone did get a $250 check. It's real. I said, no kidding. I said, look, I'll give the link out to anybody else who wants to. And I have a friend who's really white, who jokes around. I said, look, John, you say you're black, you get a check. Oh, good, man, give it to me, man. I said, don't you have some black way back there in the bushes somewhere? He said, oh, yeah, way back. Everybody, what the hell? That's the way I feel about the whole damn thing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to give me money for me being, and as far as me being black, you see me, right? I've done the Ancestry.com thing.
Uh-huh.
Went through it. I've been working on my genealogy for 35 years. I have 650 people in my genealogy, right? That I've done. And then when the Ancestry.com thing came up, my girlfriend, who's white, of course, up here, did my Ancestry.com thing. And what do you think it came up with? What do you think I am? I mean, I'll send you a pie chart. It's fantastic. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as big. It's not like the one right on my wall here is one of my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney, I'm looking right now. I wish I could put the camera on it. Sydney is 9% Abenaki Indian, 13% Polish. This is according to Ancestry.com.
Right.
98% Scottish, 3% Blackfoot, 9% Irish, 19% French, 20% Cherokee,
Wow.
22% English, and 13% Black. Now, I taught a course here in Johnson State, and I used that pie chart for my course on the whole course was on sociology and race. And I put this up on my classes, of course, 100% white up here. And so I put this chart up on it. I said, okay, we're going to discuss today the whole question of race. I said, now you see this chart? I didn't tell him it was my grandson.
Right.
I said, this is someone who lives right here in Johnson. What is their race? And that was my class. That was a discussion. I had him write a paper on it. I had to do research. What is this kid? He's right here. I said, now, according to what you are being raised with in this society, he is going to be called an African American or a black because of the one drop rule. And then I had him look up the one-drop rule, and then we did research on the one-drop rule, which was invented by a bunch of racists to keep all their slaves, who were their own children, so that their property is money. I don't care how white you are, you're black.
Right.
And they made up the one-drop rule for property. And I said, and who do you think in the society right now are the strongest supporters of the one-drop rule? Blacks. Black organizations. You think the NAACP wants all of their members to find out what they really are ethnically? No, we're going to call you all black so you can pay your membership to the NAACP. So blacks are the largest supporters of the one-drop rule. And of course, whites go along with the one-drop rule. And Kamala Harris, right now, is considered black.
Right.
Because her mother's is, her father's Jamaican, and her mother's Indian. But that's beside the point. She's considered black.
Yeah, Obama.
Now, Obama's even worse. Obama, his mother's white. His father is half sub-Saharan Africa and half Arab. Obama genetically is 1/4 African. Until he was running for president, he never put down that he was a black. He always put down other, whatever. He didn't even take it seriously. Until somebody said, hey, wait a minute, wait. You got to start calling yourself black. And there was a big thing about that. Obama had problems checking off the black box. But for political reasons, he started calling himself black.
Wow.
You know, what is bullshit?
Wow.
So anyway, it's very interesting. Since I'm not running for anything.
Yeah, very liberating.
And according to my box, I'm 22% English, 60% American Indian, about 20% African. So what the hell am I?
Yeah.
I check off other. What the hell? Oh, now, but the best thing really, person of color. And you're going to start seeing that Kamala is going to be called person of color because the Indian community is so goddamn strong. They say, what's this bullshit about her being black?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They are very serious. They want to say we have the first Indian American running for vice president. They are very serious. And you're going to see a lot of pressure for her to drop this black thing. And she's going to be called person of color.
Yeah.
And I predict it. Because she is a person of color. The black just goes back to the one-drop rule, which is really racist.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Have I taken you astray here today?
No, this has been great. I mean, 99% of it won't fit into what I'm doing, but some of it will, and some of it certainly informs it because
I mean, just to let you know where I'm coming from. This whole race thing to me is very interesting, fascinating, but it's very interesting.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to say to you. Can you imagine, and this is very, very well done, and I thought of this while I was after I woke up from my nap. Can you imagine if all of us, you and I and everything, if all of our beliefs, everything we believe was based upon facts and truth instead of what we were all raised in I was raised as a Baptist. I never believed a word of it, to tell the truth, okay? I'm not a Christian. Inconceivable. And all the other things we were raised in, and we taught in schools, in history, by our parents, all these things that are in our heads that are completely false. Imagine if a human being only had their heads filled with the truth. Wouldn't that be strange?
Yeah. It would turn society on its head.
What kind of a place would that be if every thought we had in our head was true? Duh. Incredible! I thought of that lying in bed. What an article to write. Wow! Yeah. What would happen if our heads were only filled with the truth? What really happened? Can you imagine all the stuff that you were taught in school that we're now finding out in books was wrong, lies, this war, this history, this whatever, this battle, Civil War, whatever. Imagine if we only knew the truth. That would be fascinating, wouldn't it? Ah, what kind of a world would that be if we only believe the truth?
I was talking with my kids about George Washington. We get onto that cherry tree, and we're like,
Right.
what the hell? What the hell is this story? Why does everybody know about the cherry tree?
Bullshit.
It's some crap that I don't think he was running for office. He was basically tapped, I guess. But why does everybody know this thing? That surely isn't true.
How long was it? How old was I before I found out that all of the signers, except one or two of the Declaration of Independence, were slave owners? That Washington owned 200 slaves. Yeah. Even the guy like Ben Franklin owned slaves.
Yeah.
I thought he was cool, right?
Yeah.
And about Jefferson and everybody else. But imagine if we'd known all that as kids coming up, like the kids now can know the truth about those little details about our founding fathers. But back to Scarsdale. What are we gonna do in Scarsdale?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think it's like a thorny issue, and it's like disproven by, like, you've got these two, quote, like, model minorities. Jews came in, there was friction, they worked it out. Asians came in, we're working it out. But we haven't, this isn't a destination for Black families like it should be, commensurate with the Black wealth that there should be in the New York area.
People really want to live, really. And like I'm saying, the community, of course, based upon income, you're not going to change that. But whoever can afford it should be able to live there.
Right.
And that pie chart would be, split up of different groups, whatever.
But it's, we're not going in the past few decades, we're not going in a positive direction.
No, we're not. And a lot of stuff that's happened with that's come out of the Black Lives Matter movement is not going in a positive direction. It's divided. It has divided the country more.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard for some people to admit that, but I mean, of course, I think the movement that came out of the Black Lives Matter was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, that was a worldwide movement. When I heard the Pope,
yeah,
talking about it, I said to my girlfriend, I said, this is amazing. I said, whatever has happened has affected the entire world. And overall, most of that was positive, and it was amazing. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? I mean, what kind of research do you want to do about Scarsdale or whatever? Is there anything I can help you with? I mean, I do have a little bit of free time.
I mean, I think I'm basically in the home stretch. The deal is I want to keep the focus on the Black people who lived and worked here, and not on the white people who did nice things for Black people who didn't live here.
Sure.
That's, just happens to be my topic. So,
sure.
So, I think with the census records, and I mean, I go through all the old, they digitized the local paper from 78 back to 1900. So wow. I've been going through that like crazy. And I think I've got, a good picture of it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got to get it together. That group that human relation committee, they're still around, but yeah. I never knew what they were. I didn't know that they were formed specifically for racial issues.
One person that sticks up in my mind that I don't even have to look up was David Off. David Off.
Yes.
Yeah. His was one of the houses that I went to.
Okay.
One of the first houses. Okay. And so I became friends with him. And he was actually one of the main guys behind the whole meeting at the church. And so I became friends with him, and he was Great guy. So check him out. You know, he was really behind the whole thing, the human rights thing in Scarsdale.
Yeah, and I'll try to track down Graves if it's not in his autobiography.
You know, why did he come to Scarsdale? Yeah,
right.
why did he come? I'm just curious myself. I tried to check it out, but I couldn't get very far with it. I mean, I haven't read everything about that he wrote. He's the only one that would have said something somewhere about why he came here. I don't know why he came here. Everybody else is dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But who got him to come to Scarsdale? Why did he come to Scarsdale?
Yeah. His house, I think, was torn down a few years ago.
Yeah, I read all about that. I got pictures of it. Quite a place.
Yeah. But I'm sure it was replaced by Versailles, basically. Yeah. I wouldn't believe it. All right. Well, so here I'm gonna do some stuff. I'll let you know if you're interested. I'm giving the presentation like October 18th, something like that.
Presentation? What kind of presentation?
It'll be a whole Zoom presentation on the history of Black people in Scarsdale. So I've got a bunch of, kind of really amazing photos and ways that maps and things like that. And it just kind of, what's that?
I'd love to see it. When's it going to be, you know?
Sunday, October 18th.
Really?
And I don't know what time, but I'm going to guess it's going to be like 3 p.m. And so I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go back to 1700 and work my way forward till about 1980 through kind of the different roles. And I would like my audience to feel slightly unsettled at the end, just a little bit.
What is going to be the title of the presentation?
A history of, a history of Black people in Scarsdale.
Okay.
Can you, there's nothing objectionable about that, is there? I couldn't think of a better way.
No, of course not.
Better way to say it. Somebody said to me, you should do it people of color. I said, yeah, but I'm not doing all people of color. I'm doing Black people.
Sure.
Yeah, so here's the blurb. It's that I'm going to put in the description. I might change it some today, but I got to get it out today. Black people have been in Scarsdale since European settlement in the 17th century. Through maps, newspaper articles, photographs, and census records, we will examine Scarsdale's Black community and trace its changes over the past 300 years, from the time of slavery through suburbanization and the civil rights era. So I think it's going to be really good for people to hear it. So,
Sure, that's great. So can't wait to see you.
Great. Thank you so much, Offie. This was delightful and really, really very, very cool. Nice speaking with you.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can take this video and put it up. Once I download it, I'm going to see if I can put it up under for sharing on YouTube under a private link.
Why? Why private link?
Well, do you care?
No.
Okay, so then I'll see about making it a public link or something like that. And then I'll send you the link, and you can send it to people whoever you like. They might have a limit. I might have to chop it in half or something like that. But
the only people I know who might be interested in are my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Cool. All right, Offie. Thanks so much.
By the way, I might be seeing you. You know why?
Why?
Well, because I live in Peekskill. And I'm born and raised in Peekskill, and so I'm inheriting a house. I've inherited a house, our family house in Peekskill.
Oh.
And I'm selling it.
Oh.
Within the next, hopefully, 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And so I'll be going down to Peek. I have a lawyer from Wappingers Falls, the whole bit. And we've been working on it for 6 months, and I'm the administrator. My brother and sister died, so I'm the only one left. And so I'll be getting a lot of money.
Nice.
And not that I want to move to Scarsdale. But let's just say I'll be getting enough money that I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to. But I would like to see you and just have a socially or whatever luncheon.
Socially distanced get together. Well, maybe by that time there'll be a vaccine and everybody's going to be.
Oh, no, there won't be any vaccine because this will be within 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
It's horrible. This whole thing is incomprehensible about this plague thing. It's really horrible. But we'll meet and have a lunch. I'm sure they have some beautiful places in Scarsdale.
There always are. All right, Offie, it was so nice talking to you. It was really, really great. So I'll look forward to seeing you at least over the Zoom, or maybe you seeing me, and then.
I'll see you first. I'm sure I'll be seeing your presentation on the 18th. Yeah.
On the 18th. Yep. I'll send you the link, and if I'll send you the link. If for some crazy reason I forget, just email me and I'll send you the link. But I'll make sure when they get up the link. Send Offie the link. I'll make sure you get it because I think you'll find it really interesting. It's not going to have a ton on what you're,
No. We're all over the place.
But
you just focus on what you want to do about, the blacks in Scarsdale.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's honestly, in some ways, it's representative of blacks in a lot of communities. It's not just, Scarsdale.
Oh yeah.
Wealthy. So it'll be I think it'll be a useful and unexplored topic. So
very good. Okay. Good meeting you.
Good meeting you too, Offie. Have a great day.
All right, bye-bye.